Tim, very good to have you back on here for the
Thanks.
fifth time.
Fifth time. I can't believe you got me back.
I know.
Or I can't not that you got me back. I can't believe you want me back. So
you're a hard one to wrangle anyways, Tim. You're here, you're there. It's a tradition now.
well, thanks for having me. I am honored to be your guest for the fifth time.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. The last time I saw you, it was at a the baby show
That's
in
correct. Yeah,
Los
yeah.
Angeles. Yeah,
Telegram, yeah.
which was a great performance. That was really awesome to see them there.
Oh yeah, they were fantastic. It's been a number of years since I've seen them and well, since probably anybody there had seen them. So it was great to see them.
Yeah, and then the time before that was when I caught you at the Bellwether playing with the OCs. Finally, the first time seeing you guys live.
Oh, you'd never seen us before. That was the
No,
first time.
that
Oh,
was the
no
first
way.
time. Yeah,
Well, dude.
it was a great one to jump in on. Loved
Oh,
it.
thank you. I was a little nervous. That was like night one of a US tour. And the hometown show is always a little scary, but yeah, man, that was a fun one.
Yeah, that was great. Is it? Do you prefer to do a hometown sort of gig, wrapping up a tour, or jumping off of a tour?
Oh, it's tough because with the hometown gig, you kind of want it to go well because you'll have friends there. And so if you're coming back from a tour, you'll be super tour tight. But the hard thing about doing the hometown gig after being on tour for so long is, after sound check, you have the option of going home, and then once you go home, you kind of think like, oh man, I don't want to leave this. This feels nice. Yeah,
So
just
there's
back to creature comforts. And
pros and cons to both.
yeah, yeah. I always feel bad for the first show of tour because it's you know, we haven't really ironed out the kinks at that point. We're not tour tight in our performances whatsoever, and you know, and you add that to it being a hometown show, it makes it a little more difficult. The added anxiety of that. And,
When do you feel it's at its tightest? Midway through?
uh I would say like a good first weekend, you're not overly tired. I'd say like, yeah, after like the fourth or fifth show, I feel like it gets pretty tight. And then you kind of just hit your stride for like the next 10, 15 shows. I think by the end you're a little tired. Like this last year, the final shows for OCs were at Hotel Vegas in Austin. We had four shows there. And I feel like we played pretty well, but I think we're also pretty tired. We had a tour with some pretty bonkers drives, and we're feeling pretty rough, but we're road dogs, if you will. But we're all feeling pretty wiped out at that point.
Sure, of course. I mean, a road dog can only take so much.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Road dogs got to rest, baby.
Do performances on tours tend to blend together somewhat, or is that something that's like, oh yeah, no, I remember a night in
Um,
Cincinnati and a night in Kansas City is being separate.
I think sometimes the performances blend together a little bit. It depends if there's like something really unusual that happens. It's that kind of makes it memorable. Um, but a lot of times venues are very different. We do play a lot of similar places over the years, so it's kind of nice. You get to see the same people, like folks at Warsaw, Beachland Ballroom, Chapel, Numos in Seattle. Like, just there's a lot of places that those things kind of make them stand out a little bit more. But sometimes the performances do blend together unless something truly bonkers happens while we're on stage, and or
And
exponential. Well, not exponential. What's the word? Extraordinary fuck ups. We've had a few of those, but
is that does that linger on stage for a bit?
the extraordinary fuck ups.
Yeah.
Ah, it can, but usually
Depends
it's
on how
just
extraordinary the fuck up is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it depends how extraordinary they are. Sometimes they're not that extraordinary, and we move past. But
That's that is a hard go though. So yeah. Oh,
yeah, it's true. It's true.
What was the biggest fuck up that you've seen while in attendance of a show, not playing one?
Oh, not playing. Good gosh. Um, that's a tough one to remember. I mean, one time we played with Coolio at a festival in Phoenix. Um, and it was awesome. I mean, it was just a very bizarre bill. It's like us, Coolio, I think the singer from Jimmy Eat World was doing a solo performance. A band called Andrew Jackson Jihad. Um,
I remember that group. Yeah.
yeah, it was a really funky, eclectic bill. But there was like something going on, and one of the dudes was just not hearing what he wanted to hear in the monitors, and he was just having kind of like a full-on meltdown, just yelling at the sound guy when it was actually like the monitor guy on the side, which was kind of a funny situation. But I will say the best thing though about that show was watching Coolio like do his sound check off stage while he was doing Tai Chi. He's just doing these stretches, but he also had, you know, the wireless mic and the monitors in his ears, and he's just go, oh yeah, turn that up, oh, just grunting. It was really beautiful. What
Yeah, I mean that's where you really find the sound, I guess.
how you found it?
Is there ever moments that people come up to you like, "Oh, I remember you playing this show at this specific venue," and you're just like, "Oh, I don't even remember playing there ever at all," or is it once that somebody kind of
Um,
specifies where they saw you that it kind of jogs a memory?
Sometimes, yeah, that's happened. Although I do remember one time we were playing in, I think it was Brighton, and after the show we're packing up, and this kid was like, "Do you remember me?" I was like refresh my memory, like where do we meet? He's like, "You remember me, right?" I was like, "No, no, man, I don't, but like, how do we meet?" And he goes, "Oh, we didn't meet." And I was like, "Oh, so like, why would I remember you? I'm sorry." And he says, "Well, I forgot the name of the festival, but apparently this kid was crowd surfing, and as he was crowd surfing, like he pointed at me, and I nodded,
So
and
you guys did have an interaction
yeah, that was our interaction.
and a good one.
It's a good one, yeah. I felt bad for not remembering it, but yeah,
Well, what with your stage diving and his stage diving, I'm assuming that you guys would have crossed paths eventually.
yeah, cross paths in the sea there, but
Have you ever seen somebody break an instrument after a performance, smashing a guitar or a bass or something?
uh, yeah, I remember a high school band that I played in. Um, the guy that was playing bass was actually borrowing my bass. He attempted to smash it. Um, and that made me pretty mad.
Yeah. I,
But
did the bass live on?
the bass lived on, yeah, lived on for a number of years. But
Oh gosh.
because he smashed another bass that he had, and then he borrowed my bass for what was going to be like his last show, and I was like, please don't do what you did to your old bass to my bass. And then I saw him like do the wind up and then throw it down. I was like, oh God, yeah. So I just went and grabbed it. But yeah.
I mean, have you seen that guy since? What was your reaction after that happened? Were you like, "What the fuck? We just talked about this"?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, we were like not really friendly towards the end of that band anyways. I haven't seen the guy since. He reached out to me um on Facebook, like when Facebook was a thing, you know, a while ago.
Looking for a
Saying like,
bass. Yeah.
Yeah, looking for bass. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Asking for like some wood glue or something. But and he's like, we should meet up next time you're in town. And I said, oh yeah, totally. And just never thought about that.
Have you ever thought about destroying an instrument while on stage? Would you ever
Have
bring
I?
yourself to do that? Yeah.
No, no. I mean, instruments are expensive. Uh, yeah, I couldn't do that. I mean, like when this guy attempted to smash my bass, it was like, oh, dude, I spent like a whole summer working a shitty job to like buy that thing, and now, like, dude, yeah, it's not worth it, man. So I mean, people are hard up for money. We don't live in the times where we can afford to smash instruments anymore.
Yeah. No. No, no, no.
Although I'm amazed though that there's that band, A Place to Bury Strangers, and I've yet to see them, but I know that the dude Oliver like breaks his guitar every night, but puts it back together every night. Like he's got the clamps and the wood glue and just reconstructs this like Fender Jaguar every night after destroying it, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah. Would you also like to see the reconstruction of it as well as the breaking of it?
I'm actually more interested in the reconstruction.
Yeah.
Just that seems kind of cool to see what. Yeah.
Do you feel like you would attend more shows if you weren't actively in groups playing shows frequently?
I think I would, yeah. I'd probably get out of my house more if I wasn't playing shows, I think. Like sometimes after tours I just don't want to be around loud music or people or anything and just want to be by myself watching reality TV.
Could going to more shows kind of fill that absence of performing in general for you, do you think, or nothing could kind of fill that hole?
Oh, I think I mean performing is not really like a void that I need filled. I think I just music in general. I think whether or not I'm playing it or seeing it, I think I just get a lot of it from being on tour, and sometimes I just need a break and just want to be quiet for a bit, and yeah.
Do you feel yourself getting progressively louder when it's time to get back out there?
Me personally, getting louder.
Or just your life in
Uh,
general, maybe.
I get a little antsy. I start to like you have these like change in momentums or changes in momentum where like you're on tour and you have this way of living every day, and then you stop, and there's an adjustment period with that where your pace changes, and eventually I start to feel a little antsy and feel like, okay, I want to, after I sort of like settle into the groove of not being on tour, I started to have this like itchy like angsty feeling, like where I just like I want to get back on the road, I want to get moving again, want to live a little more structured, and then
You get the best of both, Tim. That's good.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's hard to be structured, I think, when I'm not on tour. It's because like we're lucky that like we can go on tour and that's our source of income, so we don't have to work when we're not on tour. But sometimes like I when I have the option of not doing much with my day, I that's the option I take. And I don't know, sometimes it's a little bit too much sitting around and twiddling my thumbs a little bit too much. Working on music stuff at home, but just quiet stuff and yeah.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for the instrumental ambience music to come out whenever the release date is for that. I'd love to know.
You're the only one that's waiting for that. Does it
Coming
you
soon.
coming soon? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
RSD 2025.
Yeah, yeah. It's the chartreuse colored vinyl.
It's a good one.
All for you. One of one.
Do you put the same amount of concentration into performing songs as you do to when you're recording them? Is it kind of the same amount of energy being put out into both of those aspects?
Oh, in terms of like a level of attention or something, or like
level of, yeah, short attention, or yeah, just kind of being in it in
I
its
think
entirety.
recording, you're a little more present. You're you're trying to get things right. But also there's no matter how much you rehearse, there won't be like that level of familiarity as you'll have with like songs that you've played a good, a gajillion times. Um, the cool thing about playing some of these songs we've played with OCs, like I've played so many of them for such a long time. I mean, it'll be 11 years for me. I started playing with John in February of 2014, I think. It's the first practice I had. So it's gonna be like 11 years pretty soon. And there's just some songs that I played so many times with him and the band, like that, like you're just kind of on autopilot when you're performing, which is kind of cool too, because you can just pay attention to other things. Like you can see the folks in the crowd and you know react off things your bandmates are doing. But recording, it's like you're a little bit more attentive because there's also the anxiety of like trying to get it right, and it's also like it's just a totally different environment from rehearsing these songs in the practice space. Like you're in this little cramped spot playing these songs super loud, and all of a sudden you're in the studio where you're playing these songs in this totally different environment. We've got these headphones on, your amp sounds different, like the dynamics are strange. You're hearing it played back, and you're like, "Oh wow, all, I'm this sounds totally different from how I was hearing it in the practice space." So you just it's a little more of a tense situation for me, but I don't know. I don't know if I answered the question. I don't
You
remember the
did,
question.
Tim. You
Sorry.
did. You're a veteran of this podcast. You know how it works, man. You know
I
what
try.
answers
I
I'm looking
try.
for. That's the answer I'm looking for, Tim. That was good. Do you know that you're going to play certain songs differently when you bring them into the live format from how you recorded them? Is it just some aspects you're like, this is not going to be recreated? I have to kind of switch it up a bit.
Um, there's certain songs where we've taken them to these jamming territory, or taken them to jam. We just jam on certain things, and they end up going into cool places that are not on the records. I never really know where they're gonna go. Um, certain songs just don't lend themselves to jams though. Like certain like really like concise punk kind of songs, like those don't really we don't really jam on those. But songs that are like pretty wide open and have room.
What was playing on top of the helicopter pad? Like, I
Oh,
haven't been able to ask you about that. Speaking of
that
live,
was fun. It was one of those like really rare cold days here. It was very wet. It was funny. We had that scheduled and we had to pull it because it was like the forecast was saying like, oh, it's gonna definitely rain that day. There's no way that we're gonna be able to do this performance. And then as unfortunate luck would have it, it didn't rain that day. Um, so we had another day scheduled to record and film. And it actually started raining that day. So we show up at this building and we're just basically take the elevator all the way up to the top and kind of like get our stuff out, put it under tarps, and we just kind of wait for the rain to stop. And eventually it does, but we had like a certain amount of time rented. Um, and so we basically had like I think less than an hour and a half, if I'm remembering correctly, to actually shoot this whole thing. So we shot everything, and I think we did some songs in two takes, but most were all one take. And so you can kind of contribute the slop on if there, if there's any noticeable slop, it's all just contributed to being rushed and the rain too.
yeah, the pressure's on.
Yeah, pressure's on. I don't spend much time in downtown LA, but I like it, and it was kind of cool to be up there and just get that awesome view of the city. Um, there's a great bar on I think it's the Westin St. Francis, I think is the hotel, or just the Westin, maybe not Westin St. Francis, but it's a spinning bar, so it's really great. You get this cool view of the city, and yeah, it's just downtown LA is awesome. I really don't spend enough time down there, but
In terms of going to the west side, it's that's just not happening.
the West Side,
Yeah.
I actually went to the West Side recently. Like since the holidays have been here, like traffic is not so bad. And I was feeling pretty sick on New Year's Eve, but one of my good friends who moved to Australia and his wife, they were in town and they were like, "We're gonna be on the West Side. Do you want to hang out?" And I was feeling pretty rough, but I wanted to see them. And it took me to get from where I live in Glendale out to them in Venice. It was like 30 minutes. It was crazy. Um, and yeah, getting home was like a breeze. It was like, I think I was in bed well before midnight, but like driving across from the west side out to Glendale was like about like 9:30. Took me no time at all. It was unbelievable.
That's insane.
So yeah, I don't get to the west side much, but
But when everybody's out of town, you'll do
it's
it.
glorious.
All right.
Although Will from Flatworms and his family, they live out on the west side, like kind of in the mountains. And I've gone out there a couple times, and if you time it right, it's not so bad. You can do it in an hour, if, or less sometimes. Yeah, there's lots of fun stuff in this zone. Yeah,
And it gets kind of empty over there in some pockets. You go, oh, okay, not as much people, not as many
yeah,
people.
yeah, yeah. I like that a little better. I like it when it's a little less congested than other parts.
That's why you like San Francisco so much.
Yeah, it was. San Francisco is nice. Like I spent all my 20s there, but it was quite congested. Um, I mean, like it kind of geographically kind of has no choice. I mean, it's just kind of like a thumb in the middle of the ocean, the peninsula. Um, and it's only 7 by 7 square miles, so there isn't really room to grow. So you kind of have to stack
I
everybody
always
on
think
top.
about that, dude. The how much is jam packed into that 7 by 7 is
It's pretty
insane.
pretty bonkers, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not as dense as a place like Paris, but it's still like it's yeah.
Which is where you spent your teenage years, was
Yeah,
Paris.
yeah, yeah. As a young Parisian, no, no, it's kind of a big actually adjustment for me as a person that grew up in a place with a lot of space. It's Modesto, California, where I'm from, kind of a farming town, and most people have backyards and some distance from their neighbors, and to get kind of be in a place where you've got people just stacked on top of you was a big adjustment. Like I was used to hearing neighbors, but it's just like the sound of cars or like loud music from a neighbor, but wasn't used to hearing like footsteps or like neighbors just like talking on the phone in their room or something like that. Like that was all new to me.
Yeah,
But
thin walls and whatnot.
yeah, yeah.
Where was the worst place that you've lived, Tim, apartment wise?
Mm, that's tough. I Because there's one place that I really enjoyed the house and I liked my roommate, but the neighbor next door was like such an awful, crazy person that I had to leave. He actually broke my nose at one point in time. Like, just it was just a weird psycho who thought I hit his car and then punched me in the face and told me he was gonna kill me. I was like, I gotta get out of here. But the house was amazing.
Good
The
house,
land,
poor neighbors.
yeah, yeah, it was. I was just weighing the pros and cons of living here. I was like, oh, it's cheap. It's a lovely house. The landlord lives in the house behind, and everything was great. Uh, Roommate was really cool and chill. Uh, but the neighbor next door is just a raging psycho, so I had to get out.
And was it in Los Angeles or was it in San
Yeah, it
Francisco?
was it was in Los Angeles in Highland Park.
Mm.
Yeah.
Everybody's just trying to break your stuff, Tim. First the base and then the
My
nose,
face.
then
Yeah.
your face.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you can tell. It's a little crooked. You can kind of see. So I was still in my car when he came out and punched me through I rolled down my windows. He was yelling. I rolled down my window to see what's going on, and he was like, "You fucking hit my car!" Which I didn't hit his car, but he thought I did. And he ran in and boom. So you can kind of see the tilt in the nose a little bit, but
Slightly, Tim.
slight.
You straightened it out, man. Yeah, you got the
Yeah, I do these exercises every day to
mm-hmm.
move things around, but
Was that the most aggressive neighbor that you've had? Does that take the cake?
yeah, yeah, I think he was definitely most aggressive.
And now you are the most aggressive neighbor that your neighbors have now, right?
Totally, totally, yeah,
Cycle continues. Okay.
yeah, yeah. It doesn't stop with me. Yeah, I'm breaking a lot of noses here myself, but
Sure, sure.
yeah.
Have you ever gotten into a fight at a show? Maybe that you're
Me?
not even playing, but maybe perhaps attending. Yeah.
No, no, not really. Um, I'm not a I'm not a violent guy.
Not
I'm pretty
anymore.
not anymore, yeah, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
pretty conflict avoidant myself. I remember going to like hardcore and punk shows back when I was in my teenage years. I remember going up to Gilman in Berkeley. Do you know about Gilman Street in Berkeley? Legendary
I
DIY
know
punk
about
rock.
the venue itself, but I don't know. I've
Yeah.
never been there. Is it still around?
Yeah, it's still around, yeah.
Okay.
I actually went to a show there. My buddy was playing. I was in Northern California, and my buddy's band, who hadn't played in like 20 something years, was playing a show. And was like, oh, I'll pop in for this. Um, but I remember early on, Modesto is this kind of small farming town, and so we are kind of like disconnected from like larger hardcore culture that's happening in like bigger cities and suburbs. And so we go to this show, me and my buddy Kyle, and I didn't really know much. I liked heavy music. I liked punk rock and metal and hardcore, and but I didn't realize the culture like surrounding certain subsects of hardcore, subgenres of hardcore. There's kind of like this real tough guy, basketball jersey, kind of fighty dude element. And so we go to the show. We'd never seen like hardcore dancing before. And so like I was like maybe 16, 17, and I'd never seen this like weird windmill kick, like kind of like CrossFit style dancing kind of shit that's happening. I was like, this is, and I just like start laughing. And my buddy's like, dude, you can't laugh. They they like this. Like they like this? This looks stupid. Um, but then like my laughing stopped when I realized like, oh, there's a bunch of dudes and they all had these like black hoodies with like old English writing that said Courage Crew. And they started like beating up on one dude. And I was like, oh, this is looking bad. And then the fight goes outside and this crew called Courage Crew and this other I don't even remember the name of this other crew. I don't know if they were I don't think they had the shirts with the old English writing saying what their thing was.
Yeah, so unidentifiable.
An
Yeah.
unidentified crew. Yeah, maybe that's their name is unidentified crew.
Well, that's pretty smart branding wise.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, that was the first time I ever saw like a big fight at a show. I'm just thinking like, God damn, this sucks.
Did you feel like these harder, not harder hardcore, but let's just say hardcore bands started to kind of give you influence in the way that you were gonna approach playing music? Did that have a stamp on you in any
Uh,
case?
I truthfully it had a lot of like this is what I don't want to do. Like it showed me a lot of things that I didn't like. Like I liked loud, aggressive music and like when you're from like a small town and you're trying to find new music, you kind of just gravitate towards whatever seems new and you're just swimming through a sea of new stuff trying to, figure out what works for you. But sometimes with that too, like you're divorced from like the larger context within like which the stuff operates. Like you don't understand the culture behind it sometimes. And so I didn't understand that particular subculture in hardcore. And I still like enjoyed the music, but I was just like this world just kind of left me with a bad taste in my mouth. And I was like, I don't want to be a part of that kind of thing.
Whatever that is.
Whatever that is, like the basketball jersey fight your friends kind of nonsense. I don't want anything to do with that. I mean, I think you guys had a lot of that stuff in Orange County, but I don't know if you might be too young for that
Yeah,
stuff.
that stuff was already phased out, kinda.
Yeah,
by the time that I started going to shows and stuff, I was like, well, okay, it's not
because are you in
how it
your
was.
are you mid-20s?
That's a question for you, Tim. 24. Is it mid? Is it early?
Oh,
Is that early to mid? Is that late?
it's definitely not late. I think you can either say you can say early or mid. I think you it's up to your own discretion with that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think you can choose whatever you want with that.
I'll say late then. So me being
So
in that kind of new wave of bands coming in was less aggressive. It wasn't like the Cuckoo's Nest anymore,
oh
like
yeah,
those
yeah.
infamous shows there. Like it wasn't happening. But
Do they talk about that stuff at all? Like growing up, did you hear about? I mean, was that kind of like a big thing in Orange County musical? I don't know if folklore is the
I
right
would say
word, but
folklore. I would I would
folklore.
I
Yeah.
would use that word. When you were a kid, what were your parents listening to? What was on the radio
Oh,
station or cassette or whatever it may be?
well, I remember when my parents first got a CD player, they had the Huey Lewis and the News CD 4. That was a big one. Um, they listened to that all the time. They had Billy Joel's Greatest Hits, or
Strong.
I think it was a double cassette. I remember we listened to that and almost only that, driving from Modesto to Wyoming for a family trip one time.
Wow, that's a stretch to do in
Yeah,
the car. Wait,
yeah,
with
it is.
Billy.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful stretch though.
Yeah.
I mean, they had kind of like a lot of staples. I mean, they had like the Beatles and Rolling Stones, Neil Young. My mom really loved like Neil Young, James Taylor, and they were in school in Austin during the time of like Guy Clark and Towns Van Zandt. And I remember, I feel like I might have already shared this on your podcast. I was like between tours and I was like subletting my room in San Francisco. And so like I brought a bunch of stuff from my place in San Francisco and stored it at my parents' house. And I had a stack of DVDs, and on the top of the stack was a Towns Van Zandt documentary, Be Here to Love Me. And my dad was just looking through my stuff and he's like, "You like this Towns Van Zandt guy?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "He's a bum." I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "I would see him drunk off his ass all the time. Drunk off his ass even at coffee shops." God damn. I was like, "But you saw him, Dad? You saw him play?" He's like, "So many times." And like it had been years since I looked through my parents' record collection. Like I was like, "Dad, do you know by chance have any of his records, do you?" He's like, "Yeah." And he had like an amazing copy of the late great Towns Van Zandt, like an original from that time period. And at the time I was like working at a record store, or I just quit the job at the record store to go on tour. But like originals of Towns Van Zandt stuff before it was repressed, like it's like they're fetching a lot of money. And I remember asking my dad, like, would you ever like want to part with that record? Because I know I know a person who'd be quite into that if you ever wanted to part with that. And my dad was just like, "Fat chance." He was opposed to it, or so it seemed. But Christmas of that year, there's a big package for me under the tree. When it came time to open presents, I'm unwrapping this thing, and inside this big box is another box that's wrapped up. Unwrap that one. Inside is yet another box, yet another box, yet another box. So finally, my dad gave me the copy of the record. It's in the last box, and he starts chuckling. And
That's awesome.
yeah, uh, that's my most prized possession of a record right there. But yeah, but yeah, but my parents also listen to music that's like really not cool too. At the same time, like they're both uh religious folks, and they listen to a lot of like contemporary Christian music.
Do you ever play them new stuff from Flatworms or the OCs?
Sometimes. Modesto is not that far from San Francisco, and So my parents have come out to a handful of OC shows. They haven't seen Flatworms. I mean, Flatworms plays at like small places where it'd be like I'd have to like find a good place for my parents to sit. I wouldn't want them like right in the front in the mix. But my parents have seen OCs a number of times, and my one of my sisters lives in Seattle, her and her husband, and my parents were out visiting her last time we were in Seattle, so they all came and I got them a place in the balcony to watch them. But yeah, they seem to
And
like
they
it.
enjoy that too.
They enjoy that. I mean, they always kind of give the classic like parent compliments. You know, when someone gives you a compliment when they're not necessarily into what you're doing, but they're trying to have something positive to say, even though they weren't really connecting with it. They're like, you know, you guys had fun out there. I really, I could see that like you guys have been practicing so much energy, a lot of energy. I could see there are some people really enjoying what you're doing. It's like, that's always my favorite one. Like, I could see some people liking this. It's kind of cool.
I'm not one of those people, but I can see
Yeah,
that
yeah,
happening. Yeah.
yeah. No, they're very sweet, supportive people. So they wouldn't do the thing of like, yeah, I don't like it. Why so loud? So much swearing on stage.
You know, I will say there wasn't that much swearing when I went.
No, there wasn't. I mean, but like I think my parents are pretty religious folks. So I think like what might, it could be someone, saying fuck once, and that's a
That's it.
lot.
Yeah,
That sticks with my parents. That's a lot.
as it should,
As
as
it
it
should.
should, Tim.
Yeah. As it should, and it does.
Yeah, it lingers. It lingers.
Mhm.
In terms of your style of playing, though, Tim, were hardcore bands a staple of what kind of influenced you early on, or just kind of set you down the path of like, all right, I'm kind of finding your own style of playing.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as I'm living in this small town trying to figure out, music like beyond the radio, and you're kind of discovering there's this whole other world outside of it. I thought that was really cool. And you see these shows, and there are no barriers to the folks that you're watching. Like there are people playing on the floor in a basement or something like that. It was like to me that was amazing, and it also seemed like the gateway to entry wasn't that extreme. Like you didn't have to be a super talented person or a super good looking person, super smart person. You just had to be able to just do your thing. To me, that was like kind of cool. I mean, at the same time, although I guess I will say this, like the same time that that's kind of cool, it's also kind of shitty because it also means like there'll be some really terrible bands at that. But like the cool thing about that though is they're doing it, and that's awesome. And you want to just, you know, music doesn't have to be a thing that's just done by pros or people that have
Cruise.
crews. Yeah, 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 yeah. But I mean, I mean, and hardcore that wasn't just like that kind of like I don't know, tough guy basketball jersey, straight edge shit. I mean, it was cool that you could just do it yourself, and I know that sounds so cliche. Like that's that, but it's kind of cool to see though, and it just seems like it's accessible to anybody, and like figuring out that you could go on tour just by contacting people in other cities and being like, we want to play in Arcata. Can you set up a show? And like finding out that that's doable. Like that was cool. That was like impactful, and like that there's just this whole other world happening outside of like Ticketmaster kind of shit.
Yeah,
That blew my mind as a kid. Like, um, yeah, I think like in a lot of ways, it kind of spoiled me for music because like I'd be seeing this stuff that's just so intense and like and just visceral, just balls to the wall music that like it kinda made it hard for me, like, to this day, to watch, like, really mellow stuff. Like, I kinda, think about bands that I've seen, and it's like after you've seen, like, What Happens Next or, like, Capitalist Casualties or, Tragedy or, like, Limp Bizkit or something like that when you're, like, 18, 19 years old, like, how do you go watch, like, somebody just finger picking guitar? Like, it's hard because you just, like, wanna be, like, blown away by something, and it's tough, but I mean, I feel like at 42, I'd be better at appreciating stuff, but I still, like, I'll see a band and I just wanna be like I kinda just wanna be pummeled by, like, something that's, like, fully immersive. Like, it doesn't have to be a hardcore thing or a punk thing, but just something that, like, is so consuming that it takes all of my attention away. And maybe that's just me maybe having ADD or something, but I want something that, like, just demands total attention.
Do you feel like that is the case for you in, like, krautrock as well? Like, would that be another fixture that is not as abrasive?
Yeah, I mean, I
But
think so too. I mean, like, it's something that is, like, fully immersive, you know? Like, I think, like or a band like This Heat or something like that, like, that would be something that, like, just demands total attention, and it's not like a punk band, there's nobody screaming, but it's just something that demands total focus, and it's just felt viscerally or, like I mean, and there were a lot when I was kinda branching off from just only listening to punk rock stuff and kinda seeing other things, like, in my early 20s when I was living in San Francisco, like, early incarnations of the OCs or, like, early incarnations of Sick Alps, this band, The Mayors from Sacramento.
good
Th
name.
They were great. They were one of the best live bands ever. And you're just, like, seeing these bands that had, like, the intensity of hardcore, but also just kind of, like you could tell that they'd branched off a little bit. They'd also kind of their record collections were probably a little more interesting than, the 19-year-old kid that only listens to punk stuff.
Was it hard to gauge what, the OCs was before going into it? Had you heard, like, the really soft stuff
I had heard the soft stuff.
before?
Like, I got into him because I was working with this guy, Jigme, who was, he was, like, the original drummer. Actually, no, he wasn't the original drummer. I think it was, like, the Sucks Blood era of the band, I think. He was playing drums for them, and so I remember seeing them, and I didn't really know that style of music, but he's like, "I guess it's called garage rock-ish." I was like, "Oh, okay." And he kinda showed me the Gories and things like that. I knew about, like, the classic, like, American bands like the Sonics or the Wailers, but I didn't know, like, 80s, 90s stuff. Like, I didn't know the Gories or, like, Supercharger. I'd heard of the Mummies because I was from Northern California, but I didn't know that stuff. I mean, the soft stuff was, like it was coming out at a time too when there was a lot of, like, that kinda stuff happening in San Francisco at that time. Like, John still had Coach Whips, but he's been doing OCs forever. But there's a lot of mellow, folky kinda stuff happening, in the Bay Area at that time. It was kinda the time when, like, Joanna Newsom and Javendra Banhart were just kinda coming up. So there was a lot of that sort of thing happening. And as much as, like, I loved, like, fast, aggressive, stupid music, I also was, like, really appreciating that stuff. It's just hard for me to go to those shows because I just, like, couldn't sit still, but, like, I had the records and I liked listening to them at home.
In terms of the because you as you said, moving out of Modesto to San Francisco and eventually to Los Angeles, do you think that if you were of the age of when you finally moved now in 2025, I was about to say 24, 25, do you think that you would have taken that same approach as to your music or music in general?
If I was,
And
like, 19, 20, and 2025 moving to San Francisco,
mhm,
I don't know. I think I mean, it's just a different ecosystem at the time, than it is now. I mean, life was way cheaper. Um, and there was part of the reason I moved to San Francisco was I was going up there so often for shows anyways. I was just like, I just want to be in a place where something like that was happening. And I just wanted to have a different cultural experience that I don't think I would have living in Modesto. Like I wanted to meet like different kinds of people, and I I signed up to go to SF State for school, and like I just think the realities are different now. Like if I was living in Modesto and I was like 19, 20 years old and wanted to get out, like I don't know if I'd move to San Francisco for music stuff. I don't think like that would be a big determining factor because there really isn't much happening there musically. Um, I think like it's just not a city where that's as much of a thing anymore. I think like I do think there's a lot of cool, or what I would assume is cool, music happening with young people down here, like people in their like late teens, early 20s. I think there's like definitely more of a scene. So maybe if I was that age, I'd try to move to Southern California.
So like the Fresno or something, right?
No, no, not
Oh,
Fresno,
okay, not
not
Fresno.
Fresno.
Okay.
No, no, not Fresno, not Bakersfield. I'd probably, the greater LA area, I think, if I was a young kid trying to find a place to make music or move to a place where music was happening.
Well,
Um,
somebody's got to go to Bakersfield, Tim. Somebody's got to do this
ooh,
because Buck Owens isn't there anymore.
I know the Crystal Palace is gone.
Well, I don't even know what the Crystal Palace seats,
Oh,
but that's just lending to my thing here.
the Crystal Palace was Buck Owens's it's his massive venue that he had in Bakersfield. It had a massive, I think a Cadillac, the side of a Cadillac behind the bar. It was amazing. Like I've been a number of times. Yeah, Owens is gone, but they used to have punk shows in Bakersfield, this gym, this boxing gym, the Munoz gym. I mean, if you just look up Munoz Boxing Gym, Bakersfield, California, I guarantee you'll just see a bunch of different shows on YouTube for that. Like, um, in fact, John from OC's his old band Pink and Brown, I think, played there um, at one point in time. It was like a legendary spot. Like, if you wanted to have a place to play between SF and LA, Bakersfield was a spot back in the day. There's
And
kind of a
you're
cool little record store there too. I'm not little, it's actually a huge record store, called Going Underground. They've now got one in LA.
oh, it's the same people,
Yeah, it's the
same
same
thing.
people. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
cool.
And it was started by this dude, Ron, who would book shows at Munoz Gym too. And he's just been a dude that's been making, I've never met him personally, but I just know who he is and know he's done a lot for that city musically over the years.
And you're gonna add to that too, right, Tim? You're gonna
Yeah, I'm gonna move to Bakersfield and yeah, start my own gym.
out there on the streets of Bakersfield. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
I think that's the most infamous Bakersfield song
Yeah,
there is.
definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely. Yeah.
it's a good one.
It's a great one, yeah. I
But
mean, Bakersfield's got like quite the country history. I mean, there's a Buck Owens Boulevard and a Merle Haggard Boulevard.
uh,
Yeah,
that was the other guy. I was
was the
thinking
other guy.
there was somebody else, and it was Merle
It was Merle, baby. I'm wearing the hat. I've got the hat
as
on. Yeah, yeah.
as the hat says. Yeah,
As the hat says.
and of course, as we know, country is a huge staple for you, Tim. I mean,
It kind
Con
of was. I'm a big fan of Waylon.
T for
Um,
Texas and such.
yeah, yeah. Nashville Rebel. Um, um, yeah, actually, country music was like one of my first musical loves growing up. Like, it's just strange, like rebelling against my parents because they kind of, uh, I don't know if it's they hated it growing up in Texas. They were just kind of like they hated the twang, and so I think for maybe my sisters and I, like we're like, oh, this is our rebellion. We're gonna get into country, but also like Modesto and the Central Valley in general, like there's kind of an identification with Southern culture that's part of it's due like to just being like a kind of agriculture bowl kind of conservative place, but also there was a bunch of like Okies from the Dust Bowl migration that settled in Bakersfield and kind of moved north. So there is kind of a little bit of like old school Southern culture in the Central Valley, but we had way more country stations than rock stations growing up. Like, there were maybe like two rock stations on the radio, but like a good like four or five country stations. So it's kind of like the first music on the radio that I heard that I really identified with. It's definitely not cool country though. I'm talking about like Clint Black, Garth Brooks, Joe Diffie kind of country. Um, but I liked it when I was like 10, 11 years old.
All good stuff. Chris Gaines too. I think was the
This
name.
was pre Chris Gaines.
Oh, okay. That was
But
that
yeah,
was the alternative guy, right? That was
I was yeah,
Garth
Garth Brooks's
Brooks. Okay,
alter ego. Yeah, yeah.
cool. Do you feel like your style of playing bass has changed since initially developing it, whenever that was?
Uh, so I came into playing bass out of playing guitar. Um, and I had guitar lessons for like a year and a half growing up, but I didn't have bass lessons. And so like when I first started playing bass, like I kind of looked at it as more or less just a guitar and a and an octave down. Um, so I really just like played bass as a guitar player. Like I'd kind of be like looking for melody lines as opposed to like focusing on the rhythm, focusing on like matching with the kick drum. Um, but as like time went on, I'd watch other people playing bass and I actually started like taking the instrument a little more seriously. I'd kind of realize that it's way more of a support instrument rather than this lead thing. And like a bass is an instrument that's like designed to like serve the song and kind of like be the bridge between what the drummers are doing and what the guitar and keys and vocals are doing. So I think my approach has definitely changed. I think like I really now just try to like do things to serve the song.
Has that thought of serving the song helped open up creative doors for you in general?
I think I've realized like you can kind of, especially with OCs and jamming, like if you kind of do something that's a little more foundational and something that's just in a much more supportive role, like you kind of free other people up to do cool things that could take the song in a cool place and you just kind of maybe follow that. But I think like with before, if I was just, trying to come up with a cool line, like I was more or less listening to myself and not listening to other people as much. And so like taking that approach, it really has made me focus on others and like really think about my role with what I'm doing and focus a lot more on timing rather than coming up with a cool melody. Just kind of just stick with the root, be in the pocket as much as you can. Sometimes like you kind of have to like relax to get the good groove going. Like I get so worked up and in my head and nervous that like I'm like ahead of the beat a little bit sometimes or like just not landing right on it. Um, which in turn like can kind of it doesn't anchor the song. It's almost like the anchor is trying to catch up. Um, like if you're able to like relax and kind of sit in the groove, like it allows people to just come back to something as
Mm,
opposed to like we're all moving at this thing that's pretty unsteady, you know?
right. Do you think it's subconsciously that if you relax too much, then you'll just get lost in going in a different direction than everybody else is?
No, I don't think so. I think it would just kind of pull things back and it might make things get a little slower. I think with OCs, like we really I mean, it's like a pretty energetic show. So I think we definitely like I can make a conscious effort to like hold back, but still like the beat is pushed and I'll listen to like like I'll check back after tour's over and see if there's like any videos to just see how we're sounding out there. And like sometimes I'm like, oh, we're playing that so fucking fast, you know? Like and but I think part of that though is we're just like reacting to the energy. But and we're ramping up as the audience is ramping up and getting buck wild. But I have to kind of try to hold back just a little bit just to maybe like keep the groove going. But
And it,
Dan Rincon is like such an incredibly solid drummer. Like he will ramp up a little bit, but he's way more prone to just keeping it there. Like he's a good metronome. Him and Nick Murray that played with OCs, he's also like a great metronome. Paul is a good drummer. He's a little more his stuff is a lot flashier sometimes. So like we'll have, a lot of times like Dan will kind of play like the more meat and potatoes like stuff and Paul is also, super solid, very creative, but he also like allows things to be a little more flourishy, if that makes sense.
for sure. I feel like with Flatworms,
Hmm.
um, you and Will and Justin are always where you guys need to be. It's very like regimented, like on point. Like everybody's where they need to be within a song.
One of the I mean, one of my favorite things about playing with those guys um is that they're both just so thoughtful with writing songs and we every part is like well considered and planned and sometimes like we kind of like over plan stuff but like I think that's just the fun thing about playing with those dudes is they're very thoughtful and so where we end up is like pretty purposeful. That level of planning and thought and care, um, I put that more on them than myself. Like, I'm a, I'm definitely not as organized as them, but I show up. I keep my parts like pretty simple, but like Justin and Will have like cool ideas about arranging things, and they put a lot of thought and care into that stuff.
I think I would go as far to say that they're good guys.
I would say that too. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
they're top dogs.
Top dogs.
Top
Okay. All
dogs.
right.
Yeah,
All right. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know them that well, but I mean, if you're co-signing the top dog ship,
Oh yeah, dude.
okay.
Those two are in my top five all timers. So yeah,
Wow, that's big.
it's big, baby.
Uh, here's the last one for you, Tim, and then I'll let you go for a year, okay? Uh, does playing music now serve a different purpose for you as opposed to when you began playing music?
Oh, um, sort of yes and sort of no. Like, I just love doing it, and I love the feeling of just like playing music with folks and like um having that outlet, having that sort of connection with people. I think is cool. Um, and I think I've always wanted that. Like, I think it's a little more organized for me now. Like at one point in time, like I was just, I'd play with anybody I could ever play with and like, would do anything to like see a show of a band that was in town that I liked. And but now it's a little different and like I get a lot of music in my time. And like I was just like looking over the 2025 calendar year and like I have quite a bit going with OCs this year. Um and a little bit of stuff with Flatworms too. And it is different now. Part of it, like with OCs, it's like a job. It's not only is it like a band I play in, but it's also like it's my source of income and it's how I make a living. So there is that on top of it. But I think the feeling of just wanting to play music with people and that enjoyment of expression and that just enjoyment of being a part of something like I love like the product that a show is, if that makes sense. I love um I love just like that sense of accomplishment. Like I I've done a very little amount of woodworking in my day, but like that one of the things I absolutely love about that is just like at the end of the day, you can be like, I made this thing. And with music, like it's kind of they're two different products. There's like the physical product of like the record, but then there's also like the performance, and both those things feel like an accomplishment to me. Like, and I love that. Like I love the feeling of playing a show and being like, we did this thing, and you have this way of like connecting with the people on stage, and you have a way of connecting with people in the audience. And I feel like that's always just been a thing that I've loved. And there's always this thing too, like where I mean, especially for me playing bass, like just jamming out ideas with people. I love those moments where I feel like I probably said this on this podcast before, but like,
I want to hear it again, Tim. Please.
there's that moment where like the five or four or three, how many people are in the band? Like all of a sudden, those heads just become one head, and everybody is just united in this thing, and it's this. I don't know. This sounds really corny, but this little mystical process where you actually lose yourself a little bit in what you're doing.
Do you feel like some musicians have never really experienced that? I mean, even in like big bands or bigger bands, that it's never gotten to that point of just it's one mechanism moving as a unit.
I don't really know. I mean, there are times you see bands of all different levels where you feel like there's a level of disconnection with the people on stage, but there's also times where you just see like, man, this is like a locked in, amazing unit. Like that's rare. That's cool.
Yeah, that is rad. Uh, Tim, number five. Thank you
Number
so much
five. I can't
for
believe you've
coming
had
on.
me on here. Let's
I always look forward to it. This is the start of a new year. So thank you,
hey,
Tim.
thank you, man. I appreciate it.
And as you know, we got to do the promo stuff. Flatworms music is streaming everywhere. Wherever you get your music, that's where you can find
Hmm.
it. Now,
And
is the
OC's same thing.
OC same thing? For Flatworm stuff, is what record label is it? Is it Drag City or is it God?
It's God, and it's but it's like distributed through Drag City, so you can
Okay,
order Flatworm stuff through Drag City. That's
right
yeah,
on. And all I
yeah,
mean, all those links, of course, will be linked
yeah.
below. And
I mean, there's other things too from other labels, Famous Class and Castle Face and Volar Records, and yeah, other labels have put stuff out, but like Drag City is a place to get the main records, yeah. Or
right
not the main
on.
records, most of the records, sorry.
Most of the main records. How about we just
Most of the
mash them?
most of the main. They're all equal. There's no main records, but most of the records are available through Drag City, yeah.
And everybody could follow the band on Instagram at Flatworms Band to stay up to date with all the new
Right.
stuff and good stuff that's coming out.
Yeah, that sounds right. That's a good place to do that. We don't do too much lately. We have like a few shows coming up this year, but like kind of we're just trying to figure out what to do with the band. Like Will had a kid, which is a massive thing, and like it's tough to figure out like how to do a band that's like not your source of income when you have, somebody that's relying on you. And I have a difficult schedule because I'm gone a lot with OCs, and so we're trying to figure out what to do as a band. We don't really have much planned, but we're all good close friends, and we'll be figuring something out at some point in time. But
Right. So if you get the opportunity to see Flatworms, definitely go do it because it's a hard thing to coordinate.
it's a rare thing in this day and age. So
And congratulations to Will, of course.
yes,
Big stuff. And Justin as well for
he's got
what
yeah.
also what he's I didn't want to leave him out.
Oh yeah, no, he's got a record coming out too.
Ooh, Night Shop Band second
Yeah, yeah.
album.
It might even be like third or fourth. He's got a couple things out.
Third or fourth is what I meant, if that's
Yeah,
also the correct number.
he's got a number of records, and I believe he's trying to do a tour this year. Um, I've played a number of shows as part of his band, but I don't think I can do the tour. I think it's gonna be the time when I'll be gone with OCs. But
Because he was on guitar for some of those, right?
yeah, he plays guitar and sings in Night Shop. Yeah,
Yeah, and were you on bass duties then as
yeah, I was
well?
doing bass for like a couple of
Okay.
shows. Yeah,
I was hoping that you would do drums. That'd be cool. I want to see
no,
that.
nobody wants to see that.
I want to see that, and I'm looking forward to the ambient record that we mentioned earlier. And
Oh yeah.
also, of course, yeah, the OC's music is streaming everywhere. Wherever people get their music is where they can
Yeah,
find it.
it's on the internet. Records out and about in the world you can find.
Now,
A lot of
Castle.
touring coming up this year.
Okay, cool. And so, and you'll be posted about that.
There's not an OC's Instagram account. There's like a two I'm assuming operated by fans, but they don't really have the inside scoop on stuff, and one is like pretty dormant for the most part.
But
But
there's
there's
OC's merch, right?
OC's merch is actually run by um this guy Barry, who's our merch guy and affiliated wonderful man.
And he is authorized to do so. So
Yeah,
if
yeah. So
follow that.
he does that account, and then he also does a thing called Wax Face Toys that has
Hmm.
a lot of merch for us and other folks.
I believe it's waxspacetoys.com to go to go to the
That's
website there.
that is
And
correct. Yeah.
that's at O, just what the letter O, SES underscore merch on Instagram, and that's where people could find that.
Yes, that is correct. That's
And
correct.
that'll of course be linked below. But now Castleface is no longer,
Is
right?
no longer. Yeah, yeah. It's now called Death God.
Death God.
I found that out by I just got like a message from Bandcamp about that. I didn't know, but I kind of had an inkling that was coming. But
Okay. So whatever that the link is to that Instagram and the website will be linked below. Um,
yeah, I think the Castle Face Instagram is just now called Death God Records.
okay, so if you're
So
following
it's
Castleface, no, you're not. You're following
you're
Death
following Death
God.
God. Yeah, you're following the Death God now. So
Right on. And
the work is done for you. It's so
yeah, you
easy.
don't even you can relax this New Year's. It's all right. It's already done for you.
Let's try to relax in 2025 if we can.
Everyone relax. Yeah.
Everyone relax. We'll try to relax. Just try to relax.
Is there anything else we got to promote, Tim? And this is coming out tomorrow.
Oh, this is coming out tomorrow. Good
This is coming
God.
out to yeah, this is coming out
Oh my
tomorrow, man.
God, dude, you're so fast. How do you
We're
do
moving
this?
fast. Hey, we're doing it. But yeah, Tim, do we have anything else to promote dates
No,
wise? Okay, cool. But
no.
just everybody keep their eyes out and ears out
Keep your eyes, keep your ears. Yeah.
and watch the Bob Dylan movie. You're in that, right, Tim? You're in the new
No.
Bob Dylan movie. I thought it
No,
was you. I
no.
thought I saw you in the trailer. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that wasn't me. I don't know who that was, but
Well, Tim, I appreciate it. 5 times. Thank you so much.
Five
Everybody who
Timers.
hasn't, yeah, five timers club. It's only Tim, and possibly me because I've been here for all 5 ones as well. So it's just us
Oh yeah, it's just
in
us.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is just you and me, baby.
it's just us. Yeah. Please go back and listen to to the other interviews and everybody else who's been in any other projects affiliated with Tim. A bunch of cast and characters have been on here, so go back and listen to all
I mean
those.
the Dan and Paul ones, you get some views on those. They got see. I don't know why you're not having them 5 times. No one's gonna listen to me.
It's always good reception when you're on, Tim.
Oh shucks, I'll take
So
it. I'll take it.
thank you, sir. Thank you for
Hey,
taking it.
thank you. Thank
Thank you
you.
for coming back on, and I'm gonna stop recording this. I'll talk to you in a minute. All right.
All right.